In the early hours of the 18th of June 2012, a body was discovered in a pool of blood, just a few metres from the main street in Pyro. It was well-known local businessman Jordan Voudouri.
Jordan was discovered lying face down at the back of his business premises. He owned Mykonos Pizza and Pasta restaurant.
I had called him a few times and he wasn't picking up.
Heard something on the radio about a body being found in Pyro. My heart was in my stomach.
A few hours later we found out what had happened, and that's why I didn't pick up.
Police have now confirmed a popular pizza man was killed, but they won't say how 55-year-old Jordan Voudouri died in the Waikato town of Pyro.
Jordan had been shot. The thought was, why was he shot? Nobody really had a bad word to say about him.
He loved people. He was a people person.
Tributes to Jordan Voudouri have swamped the Pyro pizza man's small shop.
As a young detective, you want to work on the whodunit homicides, and this was a classic whodunit.
You just keep replaying that question. Why is the biggest question in our whole lives? Why?
Police believe it's never too late to solve a cold case, but your help is imperative.
The fact that someone's taken a firearm, shot an innocent man dead, in my view, should drive anyone that has any bit of information to come forward.
We've brought together a team of highly skilled detectives to review some of New Zealand's most haunting unsolved murders. They'll use their skills, expertise and up-to-date technology to look at things with fresh eyes.
I believe it can be solved. There's somebody out there sitting on the information that we need.
For those who've worked on the case since the original investigation, the drive to find who killed Jordan never leaves them.
They're just cowards. They think they've got away with it, but that's not going to be the case.
This will be solved. I have no doubt that we will solve this homicide.
So on the 18th of June 2012, I started work as normal in Thames. It was quickly became apparent that a male had been found deceased in Pyro. It was my first homicide inquiry that I'd been involved in. I ended up working on that inquiry for 12 months solid. Soon got put into the role of officer in charge of exhibits, a role which I still hold today.
Early that morning, a neighbour was the first to find Jordan's body at the back of his pizza restaurant in the small rural town of Pyro in the Waikato.
He was found in a communal kind of parking area at the back of that property, which a number of the shop owners had access to. It was reported to us at about 6 o'clock that morning. It was determined that Jordan had been shot.
Papa used to call every night, and that night we were saying, we love you and we'll hear from you tomorrow.
And his last words to me were, "Kalanigta bidem sigapopuli yasu," which means "good night, my beautiful. I love you." So we were really lucky that we got to hear those words.
Jordan's brother, Nico, phoned me at work and he said he's gone. He felt that somebody tried to burgle him and killed him. It was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life, to tell the children that their father had gone.
I just stood there and I screamed because I just spoke to him like hours before.
They couldn't believe it because they felt like I was joking, but I was like, this is not something we joke about. This is real. It was horrible.
Good evening. Well, it's now at the end of day 2 of this homicide investigation, and for the most part, police have been inside Jordan Voudouri's shop right here.
Police spent days gathering evidence from the scene, but found nothing that pointed to a clear motive or offender.
Jordan was found lying face down near the external gate at the entrance to the driveway of the property. His arm was caught up in the gate mechanism, which suggested he might have been trying to reach out for the gate. There was a trail of blood that led back to an area close in behind the shop. There were some scuff marks in the gravel on the driveway, which suggested that a scuffle had taken place at that point, and potentially that was where Jordan had been shot. He had his wallet, which had a couple of $100 in there. He had his watch on, so things hadn't been removed from him.
But the pizza restaurant had been the target of burglaries in recent months.
Jordan had become a little bit more security aware. He'd had some frozen meat and frozen goods stolen from his premises.
After that, Jordan started locking the back gate at around 6 o'clock each night.
The keys to the padlock were found in this scene. The padlock was unlocked and the keys were separate from the lock itself.
Inside the restaurant, nothing appeared to be disturbed. Police inquiries found the last person to see Jordan alive was making a bakery delivery around 10:30 that night.
When the analysis from his computer came back, it showed that he had been on Trade Me that evening, but that the computer itself was shut down just before 1:30 that morning.
It was very typical for him to be on Trade Me any time of the day or night. When Pyro is surrounded by antique shops, so not only was he buying from Trade Me, he was going in and out the antique shops. He just couldn't help himself. Look at the moustache over the ear.
I know, it's like half his face.
Because they used to have competitions. Who grew the best moustache.
I think this is like his first one. It's like the junior moustache. And then over time they've got him bigger.
This one looks like a fat worm.
Jordan loved being a father. When he and Gwendolyn first met, Carrie was just 2 years old, and then together they had 3 more children.
See this beautiful black and white? That's Papa's family.
Oh, this is Spiros and Efthymia,
Yeah.
actually.
Papoose and yeah. Jordan didn't like to really talk about it very much because it wasn't a very nice upbringing.
At 8 years old, he was selling cigarettes from a cardboard box. And since that, he was always working. And so I think that's something as well that he passed on to us, is that he was a very hardworking person.
Look at your father.
Yeah.
Photo after photo.
Pai came to New Zealand, his brothers were here, and so he was visiting his brothers, and that's where he met Mum the first time.
I love this picture of
Your
you
brother
guys.
will... what is this doing in here?
See, there is one of you.
Look at my hair so short.
How old was I in this photo?
You would have been about 5, 6. Yeah.
Family is everything.
So important.
Climb the
Oh,
tree.
I love this photo of us because it has all of us.
Gorgeous.
This
Oh
photo.
yeah, look, I got a gap.
Because we're all in it.
Look at the drapes.
Even when Jordan and Gwendolyn split up, the family unit remained tight.
He was there, always. He
always
was
there.
never not there.
When Jordan moved to Pyro, he regularly made the drive back to Auckland to see the family.
I think I quite enjoyed the long drives down from Auckland to Pyro. Like, it was a nice special time for us. And he'd tell us stories about when he was in Greece and listen to Greek music, and not that me and my brother could understand it, but we would sing along.
All 3 of us, we used to help pass the time as we would fold pizza boxes. It was actually just child labour in the end. The person who could like fold
As many boxes
would win like a
something.
lolly or something. But then like we would come home with like lots of paper cuts.
Paper cuts and sore hands,
from
but it was
folding
worth
pizza
it 'cause it was
boxes.
fun.
Small town life in Pyro suited Jordan.
Everybody smiled and waved. Everybody knew the pizza man. He felt a connection to that community.
School kids would come along like, hey, Jordan, and then he'd be like, you want a pizza? Homeless people would come over and sit down at his table, and he would just make them a pizza, not even say anything or ask, just give them a pizza.
So I don't understand why this happened.
The police investigation into Jordan's background revealed nothing at all to suggest a motive for murder.
He liked to have a go on the horses, but really only $3, $4 bets, nothing huge. He wasn't a big gambler. He didn't owe money to anybody. He wasn't a drug user. He was just the pizza man. Was it a robbery gone wrong? Did Jordan stumble across something he shouldn't have? Was he just the wrong place at the wrong time?
Initially, police didn't reveal how Jordan was killed, but during the area canvass, 2 people from the funeral home nearby both reported hearing a gunshot.
Their recollection was based on a TV program, I think, or a movie that was playing at the time. So they based the gunshot sound at around 2 a.m. in the morning. As we know, Jordan turned his computer off around 1:30 that morning.
There was no camera covering the back of the shop, so police trawled through CCTV from both the main street in Pyro and the wider region, looking for any suspicious vehicles. Immediately, they had a very strong lead.
6 o'clock of that morning, the mobile service station in Waihi was subjected to an aggravated robbery where 4 offenders entered the store and held up the employee at gunpoint. The same group of people then made their way to Kadikadi, and at 6:22 they held up a dairy owner. So they were immediate suspects to potentially be involved in Jordan's death.
The 4 offenders were caught and charged for the robberies in Waihi and Katikati, but the team investigating Jordan's murder quickly realised they couldn't have been in Pyro.
They were at an address in Waihi during the night, and people had placed them at that address. So no, it was quite evident that they just couldn't have done all 3.
However, new suspects soon appeared much closer to home.
So the person who discovered Jordan was visiting a friend who lived in an adjacent business, a door or so down from Jordan's business. They found Jordan roughly 4 o'clock in the morning as they were leaving. Upon the discovery of Jordan's body, they've then returned to their friend, reported what they've found, and it wasn't until about 6 o'clock that morning that the friend then reported the discovery of Jordan's body to the police. So that raises questions for the team. Why the time delay?
Police looked into the pair, but also at the friend's former partner who had an interest in firearms.
Was there an altercation that had taken place between the friends and the partner of one of those friends? Was Jordan just in the wrong place? Did he intervene? Did he come off second best? Those people become early persons of interest to the inquiry, and they were brought in, but were soon not ruled out of the picture, but were put aside, for a better word.
After 12 months, the investigation team had looked at more than 30 persons of interest.
Yeah, there were times that hopes got raised of everybody there. Then there is that element of disappointment where maybe we're just missing something. I'd like to know that everything's been done to resolve this and to find out who's done it. Because in my opinion at the moment, they're just cowards. They think they've got away with it. But that's not going to be the case.
In 2012, 55-year-old Jordan Voudouri was found lying face down in a pool of blood behind his pizza restaurant in Pyro. He'd been shot dead. 8 years later, no one knows who killed Jordan or why anyone would want to. We have brought together 4 highly experienced detectives to spearhead a new review. Leading our case will be Detective Senior Sergeant Will Loughran, the new officer in charge.
Come into this investigation with fresh eyes. There's that drive to solve this for the family. I know that's also the focus of my team.
Detective Glenn Ewing has been involved with the case since day one.
No detective ever wants to work on a homicide that's unsolved. It is all about solving it for Gwendolyn and her children and Jordan's children.
Detective Simon Everson was the officer in charge of the scene in the original investigation.
You never let it go, it's always on your mind. Is it going to be this year that we're able to get that little bit of evidence to close it?
And Detective Mark Leatham, who still holds the exhibit file.
As the months and weeks went by, you get to know Jordan and who he is. Somebody you've never met before, all of a sudden you know a lot about them. There is a personal element to it.
4 detectives, 1 cold case. It's time for the Jordan Voudouri investigation to begin. We will also be looking to you, the viewer, to help solve this homicide.
I guess this inquiry, what niggles at me is that we've got a small community that are really closely connected, but we still haven't received that critical piece of information that has led to this being solved.
Exactly, and I think that's the overriding point, is that we can't give any closure to the family, and that's the most important thing as far as we're concerned.
The team goes back to the evidence gathered from in and around Jordan's pizza restaurant.
From the scene, we know that he had made himself something to eat, and obviously was working on his computer, and he's either heard something outside or he's gone outside. Something's drawn him out to the back of the shop. In here, there was the back of the shop up to where the concrete ends here. The freezers that the burglaries occurred at were up against the back wall, and they were still full when we checked down.
Simon Everson was the detective who ran the scene examination back in 2012. It was fastidious. 9 days combing the area for any scrap of evidence.
Jordan would have had to have walked out here to come to this gate. We don't know why he's come out here, whether it's just to lock the gate or just heard something and come out. As soon as you unlocked it, it just swings open full. So we're getting up to the point now where we found the keys, approximately here on the ground, and then we had this area of scuffing in and around here. He's come out to here and something's happened here.
So this is our area of interest in terms of the exterior of the scene.
And then if we go a little bit further back here, this is where the cartridge was.
In our scene, we have a spent cartridge, which is significant. We know that cartridge is from a 22 round.
So if you take into consideration the keys, the scuff marks, the cartridge, we believe that he was shot. And then he's managed to walk or run or whatever the case may be out towards the street. And then we have this blood trail starting. And it's only a very faint blood trail. It drips and it gets worse as he goes down. So Jordan has managed to get to here where he succumbed to his injuries and fallen over. There's blood on this fence, so it looks like he's grabbed the fence as he's gone down, ending up.
He's come to rest here.
Come to rest here.
During significant inquiries such as a homicide, we hold back information from the public. That's so that we know key facts that only the killer or killers would know.
However, after 8 years, police have agreed to reveal some of the evidence they've been holding on to spark new information.
It's approximately here that we find 2 plastic ties. They're sitting on top of everything. They're looking pristine, so they haven't been in the scene for a long time at all. And one's tied and one's not. From our inquiries, we just can't place where they have come from.
So talk me through these cable ties. We've obviously got one of the cable ties that's already has been put into a loop, and one that hasn't. Have you sort of made of what that means to you?
If the offender or offenders have brought those to the scene, my then question is what were they going to do with them? And the thing that comes straight to me is that they're going to secure somebody with them. We know there's been burglaries before, but burglary, well, I looked at it and thought about it. Burglary, how many burglars I've done it 34 years, how many burglars take a firearm with them? There's not many. So, burglary I don't think is a motive here. A robbery, perhaps.
Has someone taken a loaded gun intent on using violence to get what they want?
There was all these stories floating around that Jordan may have had a big win at the TAB. We know that's not true now. So were they going there to use these to tie him up, to rob him, or have they just been innocently dropped by somebody?
Like everything that was seized from the scene, they were considered for DNA. Unfortunately, there was no identifiable DNA from them.
We had a huge phase on these, trying to identify these. They're a certain make.
YY from Taiwan.
YY from Taiwan.
I think there was 3 distributors in New Zealand, and then they've obviously distributed them out to New Zealand
nobody
businesses.
could tell us.
But we couldn't
all
track
the different
down.
places. We did multiple search warrants.
And they're so generic looking, aren't they?
So from the investigation, we know these are foreign to the scene, but we cannot say categorically these were brought to by the offenders.
Can't put them in
or offender.
take them out.
Did someone intend to restrain Jordan, or were the cable ties innocently left behind? Can you, the viewer, shed any light?
I suppose if somebody had been in there the day before the murder and may have dropped these, then we'd love to hear from them. Then, at least then we can eliminate them from our inquiry. But at the moment, they're foreign to the scene and they form part of the investigation.
There are other items of evidence police are now willing to discuss that may hold the key to solving this murder.
This is our scene where we think the activity has taken place. We have the keys here at point 30 and we have the cartridge at point 15. In between those are a lot of scuff marks where we believe this activity has taken place.
So with this likelihood of a scuffle taking place, what forensic work have we done on the clothing?
The clothing was removed from Jordan through the autopsy process. We go through a process of drying the clothing in a sterile environment to start with. The fact that everything sort of indicates a close contact between Jordan and those responsible. The hope was always to get that trace DNA or something's left behind. Fibres. Yeah. With the speed of forensic advancements, it's only a matter of time before the clothing may reveal further information to identify our killer.
The most crucial piece of evidence found at the scene is the spent cartridge.
We confirmed that it was a .22 calibre cartridge made by Winchester, Super X brand, as we can see on the base of the bullet there. The Super X brand is a fairly generic, very common brand.
It could be a semi-automatic where it's ejected it straight away, or it's a bolt action where the person has actually manually worked the bolt and eject the cartridge.
Back in 2012, we did everything that we could do with that cartridge to identify fingerprints or DNA evidence. And I'm confident that as technology improves, that will lead us to identifying our killer.
The cartridge is not the only ballistic evidence the team has. There is also the bullet.
What we know from the autopsy is that the round that was recovered from Jordan is a forensic match to the cartridge found at the scene.
Yeah, so between the cartridge and the projectile, there's characteristics on both items that will identify the gun.
Having both the bullet and the cartridge forensically proven to match is vital.
Those two items are significant to the investigation. They are crucial in terms of us matching the firearm involved to the scene and to Jordan.
When we find that gun, we will know that that's the gun that's been used, and whoever's had contact with that gun will need to be worried.
The cold case team is reviewing the violent, unsolved murder of Jordan Voudouri, shot dead at the back of his pizza parlour in 2012. They are now prepared to release chilling details about the last moments of Jordan's life.
So we know from the scene we've got a .22 cartridge, and we know that there was a
projectile.
Exactly.
I guess we know point of entry. Yep. Where the bullet has entered Jordan. It would suggest a fairly close contact connection between Jordan and the offenders.
We know that the gunshot was fired close range. That is consistent with the evidence that we found on his left arm, which was gunshot residue, essentially, which gave us as investigators a really clear picture that Jordan was possibly holding the firearm when it was shot, or he was in very close range to that.
This close contact means Jordan may well have seen his killer's face, even looked him in the eye.
What's always got me is that how close he got to the offenders or the offender. Yep. To actually almost like he reached out and to grab the gun, and that's when that shot's gone up his arm and into his abdomen. Just to get that close, to have come out of his shop, opened the gate because the keys are out there, and then gone to confront somebody. There's been obviously some sort of altercation because of all the scuff marks on the ground. But then to get that close, to be able to reach out with his arm and to get the gun, that's just always...
Although he was known as fiery, he was a fire, he wouldn't back down.
Has he been trying to grab the firearm and say, don't be stupid? You know, if he's known the person, come on, don't be stupid, and boom.
Or he's just been confronted, boom, it's all happened just like that.
Very quickly, yeah.
If he felt that night someone was going to burgle him, of course he chased them. Of course he would have done that. That is natural instincts for Jordan. And he would have that little Greek stubbornness, like, how dare you? How dare you steal from me?
I can see why he did what he did. Makes me so angry, because when we saw his body, he had a broken nose. I saw on his body what took place, and he shouldn't have done that. But whoever did what they did, shooting him, it's ridiculous.
It was planned. They had a plan. They took a gun. Who takes a gun if you didn't plan, right? A loaded gun.
Finding the firearm has always been the key to solving this cold case, and having both the bullet and the spent cartridge is a significant forensic lead.
It enables us to link the deceased to the firearm via the bullet, but also the scene to the firearm via the cartridge case. When we combine other forensic evidence such as fingerprints or trace DNA on the firearm, then we can link the perpetrator to the gun, to the scene and to the victim.
ESR ballistics expert Angus Newton has been across this investigation for 8 years. Since then, he's tested more than 50 rifles and 43 different cartridge cases looking for the weapon that killed Jordan.
The firearm is designed by manufacturers with certain characteristics, and we call these characteristics class characteristics. One of the most important to us is the firing pin. The firing pin strikes the base of the ammunition, initiating the firing process. The surface detail on the firing pin is transferred to that cartridge case, leaving a signature of itself behind on the cartridge case.
That imprint of the firing pin helps identify the make and model of the firearm. A recovered bullet also has the telltale signature of an individual firearm.
Inside the barrel is a series of grooves that are cut or formed into the interior surface of the barrel during the manufacturing process. The grooves impart spin to the bullet as it travels down the barrel, which improves the stability of the bullet in flight to get it towards its intended target. Manufacturers will employ different numbers of grooves and also different directions of twist.
There are 3,700 types of firearms that fire .22 long rifle caliber ammunition. But that list gets a lot smaller when the individual class characteristics of the bullet and the cartridge case are included.
So from just using the bullet, we can get down to 20 possible firearms. When we add the shape and size of the firing pin, that drops that list down to 10.
That means the firearm used to kill Jordan can be positively identified.
If that right firearm is submitted to the laboratory and we undertake the comparison and the correspondences that we find are in sufficient quantity and quality, in my opinion, that firearm would fire the cartridge case and the bullet recovered from the victim to the exclusion of all other firearms in the world.
Since Jordan's brutal murder, every effort has been made to find the right firearm.
Every .22 that has been seized between then and now has been compared to this cartridge. There's thousands of them, and we have not been able to locate the exact firearm.
I remember looking back through burglaries where firearms, and in particular .22s, had been stolen, just to canvass whether they still had spent cartridges floating around, or they could say, hey, look, I used to shoot at that target. I recall one search warrant that was conducted where the owner of the firearm had directed us to an area where he had fired the gun several years prior to Jordan being shot. We conducted a grid search of a paddock which had basically been left to overgrow for 10 or more years. The saying, looking for a needle in a haystack, is really what it was.
I got the specialist search squad to come down from Auckland, and these guys, using their metal detectors and prods, eventually did locate a .22 cartridge, which raised their hopes.
That single cartridge came into my possession, ever hopeful that it was the one. Another trip to ESR, I met with Angus at the front counter and said, mate, I think this might be the one. Angus, through his knowledge and experience, quickly put me out of my misery and said, no, this unfortunately is not the one you're looking for.
Our detectives have ridden many highs and lows. The high of, this is the key bit of evidence that will solve this murder, and then taking it to ESR and unfortunately Angus saying, no, that can't be your firearm. I guess what this really demonstrates is that there is still forensic evidence available You know, people may not realise, but it could be buried somewhere that we can locate, dig it up, and forensically compare it to what we know.
Even if somebody out there doesn't know where the firearm itself is, but if they know where there was a dodgy firearm fired from that place, that's going to be very helpful.
Exactly. 22 style firearms are very common, particularly in the rural Waikato. If you knew of people that were in possession of the style of firearm in 2012 that shouldn't have had a firearm such as this, then we need that information and we need you to contact police.
In a small community like Pyro, the memory of Jordan's murder remains vivid.
Homicides like this were quite rare. Someone being shot dead, it wasn't something that was happening often. A lot of people in Pyro that were living here in 2012 still live here. This is a close-knit community that knows everyone's business.
And 8 years later, police know there are members of that Pyro community who are only now coming forward.
So some new information did come to light recently that 2 persons are responsible for the murder of Jordan Voudouri.
Will this recent tip-off be the key to solving this cult? It's been 8 years since Jordan Voudouri was killed, but in the tight-knit town of Pyro, the memory of the pizza man's murder is still at the forefront of people's minds.
This homicide impacted significantly on this community.
In 2012, Pyro had actually been voted the best small community in New Zealand. It really put a black cloud over Pyro. People all had their theories and nominations for who police needed to look to.
This is a close-knit community, which makes it hard to believe that we haven't solved this homicide. We've seen it already, that loyalties have changed and people have contacted us about past associates and told us some critical information.
Police are now prepared to divulge one of the most recent investigation phases in the hope that you, the viewer, may have valuable information about 2 new persons of interest.
So police were given information after having attended another serious crime.
The information was about a person's possible involvement in Jordan's murder.
So that really pricked my ears up in regards to, hey, have we got some new persons of interest here?
At that point, police decided to apply some pressure.
To generate some talk amongst them, some inquiries were done with some close family members. And yes, it was confirmed that word had got back that we were doing some door knocks and just rattling the cages, so to speak.
As a result of that pressure, investigators found out the main suspect had spoken to a family member about police investigating him for the pizza man's murder.
And he talked about how he'd never kill anybody on purpose. The conversation that was had was that he used to be angry back then when he was on that stuff. And I assumed from that reference to being on stuff, potentially being on methamphetamine or drug related. So the person he was talking with was talking about how angry he used to be when he was under the influence.
Meanwhile, the second man had allegedly made some admissions to associates. He said they had previously committed a robbery at Jordan's pizza restaurant.
So we've got one person saying that they're both involved in talking about shooting Jordan, and the other person, although not admitting to his involvement in any murder, he's talking about doing a robbery. Even more interesting was the fact that about 6 months prior to Jordan's murder, there was a burglary reported to the police where a number of firearms were stolen, and in particular a .22 caliber firearm.
At that stage, the firearms burglary was unsolved, but police had already identified the 2 associates as their key suspects.
The fact that they were suspects for a burglary 6 months prior to Jordan being killed, the fact that one of the guns was a .22, yeah, it was interesting.
We executed a search warrant at one of the suspects' home addresses where we found a .22 caliber firearm in their bedroom. At that point, as part of this investigation, that was, a big moment.
I couldn't get the gun up there quick enough. The search warrant was executed late one afternoon. The following morning, I'm on the road to ESR. I met Angus at the front counter, put his camera up the spout with his torch, and he was quite quickly able to eliminate that firearm due to its rifling characteristics.
Again, lots of highs and lots of lows, and you know, as anyone involved in this investigation, we were disappointed, you know. So with these two associates that we've recently looked into as part of the suspect phase, Mark, what's your views in terms of us going forward with them?
Yeah, look, we can't exclude them. That's my thoughts on the fact that they were both interviewed and both spoken to at length, and challenges were put to them. In my opinion, they haven't provided us with a valid reason to exclude them from our inquiry.
We can't eliminate those two associates from being involved in this murder. What I believe from this recent suspect phase is that there are people that haven't told us the truth.
And those people know who we've spoken to, and perhaps they need to have a look at themselves.
However, as a result of filming this episode, brand new information has led police to look at an entirely new angle.
Since filming, we've received a new piece of information which has identified a possible person of interest to the investigation. We know that this person was known to Jordan.
This new information suggests there may have been a more personal motive for killing Jordan.
We've always been open to one of the motives being a robbery gone wrong, but with this new information, this opens up the possibility that Jordan knew his killer, and that's why he's opened the gate and lowering his guard.
We've reviewed the CCTV footage that we obtained of the main street of Pyro the night that Jordan was killed. We've captured one vehicle of interest that has been seen driving through the main street of Pyro at around 1:09 in the morning, and then again at 1:21 a.m. We'd like to ask anyone who might know that vehicle or who may have been driving that vehicle to contact us, because we believe that you may hold some critical information to our investigation.
We have a number of persons of interest in this homicide investigation. What that means is that we've got a number of people that we cannot categorically eliminate from being involved.
With new leads and fresh information, including CCTV footage, is the net tightening around Jordan's murderer? After 8 years, the cold case team examining the murder of Jordan Voudouri still have new investigation avenues open to them.
What I'm excited about is that we're still receiving information all the time. There's always an opportunity to solve this. I know that with advances in DNA, advances in forensic science, that some of the exhibits that we have may one day solve this homicide. That excites me, the fact that there's plenty of opportunity. The mindset that we have is we're going to solve this. It's just a matter of time, it's not if, it's when.
I still have that jacket.
Do you?
Your brother has it.
Mum, don't you have mixed feelings about this picture?
It's funny you
It's
should
one that
pick
you
this
like to
photo because I do. This will be the last time the three of them actually sat together.
Yeah.
I love it because it's like the last one, but then I don't love it
like it.
because it's the last one.
If they only knew what was about to happen. Deep breath. Deep breath. We got this. We got this.
We've always been close, but we're even closer. I think the one thing I regret, I always say, is I don't have enough photos of him.
Yeah.
Like, lots of baby photos, but not enough older photos. Now we're always taking photos of each other, just so that we never have to regret that as well.
He's missed huge things in our lives, massive things in our lives, and he hasn't been there. Like, on my wedding day, he should have been there. He should have been there for Mia and for Spiros, and when we've had all these big, beautiful moments. We're turning into adults, and he's not there to see it.
Ah, man, that's such an old photo.
Does he not look handsome there?
Yeah, he does. Total stud.
I have got a lot of happy memories about Jordan. I just wish that he'd taken more care and he didn't feel like he had to protect everybody else and everything else. If he just stopped to remember that he had some precious children that he should have been around for a long, long time, he might still be here today.
Pretty much from day one, I got to know Gwendolyn and the children. They're a beautiful family. And they deserve better than this. We get together with them every year, generally around Jordan's anniversary of his death. I guess the hard thing about it is that over the 8 years, we haven't been able to make somebody accountable for what they did to Jordan. That's very hard. The best day in my policing career will be the day I can go to them and say, we've got that person or those people.
I believe this is one of the cases that we can solve.
And to still have it unsolved after 8 years is just one of those things that just grates on you. It wakes you up at night. It needs to be solved.
Just as it preys on the minds of the detectives who've worked on the case, police believe it must also haunt those who are still sitting on information.
Being involved in this and shooting someone as innocent as Jordan dead would have a massive impact on you. And I struggle with the prospect that they haven't told someone. And if you are that person that's been told, I urge you to come to police and talk to us about what you know, so we can solve this for Jordan's family.
It would feel like such a relief, to be honest. I think most of our anger is because we don't know who it was or who it is.
And why they did it.
And why, but I feel like once we know, it would just relieve such a big weight off our shoulders. And then, not that we would ever forget this, but about everything that we've been through, but we could actually relax a little, not have to worry, because we already know who it was, if we ever find that out. Yeah.
This investigation will never close until we get somebody for it.
And that person or persons that were involved, keep looking over your shoulder, because we're still coming.
You did something wrong. You should come forward. You've done a really horrible thing to a family. How do you sleep at night? You know, because we definitely have lost many, many nights of sleep. We're talking about a murder. You committed murder. And your program might be called Cold Case, but there's no way this is a cold case. It will go on until that person is held accountable. It's very much a hot case. It's alive, and we want people out there to see this program. Don't protect this murderer. What will you get from protecting some information that could help us solve this Jordan's murder? It's murder. Murder, people. It's a big thing.